Hi, Julie. Welcome to Get Social with Yatra. And this is the episode 2. And thank you for being here.
I am honored to be part of your episode too, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so for starters, could you tell us about yourself and your little journey?
Sure. So I've been in marketing my whole career. I love to talk about the fact that I've really had this really well-rounded journey in marketing. And what I mean by that is I've been on the agency side, I've been on the client side where I am today. And in terms of what I've done in marketing, it's really been across the full discipline of marketing.
Wow.
And that is everything from brand to demand generation to digital to customer experience.
Wow.
So I love looking at the sum of the parts of all of the different marketing disciplines to really build a cohesive strategy. And that's really what I do at, the companies that I have been at recently is do exactly that.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much. So that takes us to the first question. So what's the difference between doing social media and building a brand strategy?
I'm glad you asked that as a fundamental, foundational question because I think a lot of brands get it wrong, right? So I'll give you my opinion. When I see, doing social, it's simply the act of posting in different social media places. And that could be B2B, like LinkedIn,
Mhm.
or B2C, like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. And I think that a lot of brands feel like they are more accomplished with the more social sites where they have a presence.
Mhm.
That is to me is doing social media.
Right.
When you have a brand strategy, that is when the word strategy comes into place, right? When you think about a brand strategy, you have a consumer or a target audience in mind, and you have a very clear goal of what you want to do. And that could be increasing revenue, that could be developing a relationship or increasing
Right.
engagement, that could be reducing retention, whatever that is.
Mhm.
And that social media needs to, and it's critical, especially a channel like social needs to ladder into that goal. If your social media and your post, again, regardless of how many handles you have, is not answering to your brand strategy, then your social isn't working.
Wow, that completely makes sense because when I started my career, I was just doing social media because it was all new
Hmm.
to me. This is back in 2018, I guess. Yes, 2018. And I've also been in social media since I started my career like 7 years now. But now when I'm actually working with a lot of, companies and with a lot of startups, I realize what actually building a brand is. It's very
And
different.
to your point, I think a lot of managers or leaders sometimes miss the mark or miss an opportunity when they hire a social media specialist or whatever position it is.
Mhm.
Because if the social media, let's call them a specialist for this example, doesn't understand and appreciate the brand strategy,
Right.
how are they expected to hit the mark and build a successful social media
Right.
strategy?
Absolutely right.
They're working in a silo. And I think that oftentimes that connection and that work of really getting your social media person who is so critical to your brand strategy,
Right.
not getting to them to appreciate that strategy, is really handcuffing your social media specialist from doing really great work.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. Yes. So, what are the three non-negotiable things a brand needs to have a successful digital presence today? Like just three important things.
Okay. So for me, I would say number one is that it's customer first, right? I've heard a lot of companies, and I've been at a lot of companies, quite frankly, when from the top, they're expecting social media to be the panacea and say, all revenue is going to be coming from these channels, including social media. If you are expecting unrealistic performance or goals from social media, that's wrong. You've got to think that social media, above all other channels in your marketing mix, has to be maniacally focused on the customer. So I think that is first. Okay. The second is that you have to be okay with a channel like social to be comfortable with all the feedback that you get, right?
Right.
And that is the good, but of course, that's also the bad. And what I've seen, and I've seen this in companies that I've been at, and I've seen it with great brands that are out there, is that oftentimes the most angry customers with the most insulting feedback, if social is handled well, they turn those customers into brand ambassadors,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yes, I
So
agree.
that's really important to be able to be comfortable. I know some brands that say, okay, we're only going to show the good feedback. You're only showing half of the conversation,
Right,
right? My last company was telecom, and you can imagine the customer sentiment in the telecom industry. It's just
right.
under airlines. It is not favorable. And I think the best brands really show, if somebody's really frustrated, well, take that as an opportunity to turn
Right,
it into a surprise and delight, right?
I agree.
And then the third non-negotiable for me is two-way dialogue in social, right? A lot of brands treat social like email or a one-way channel, right?
Mhm.
And the beauty of social for it really to come to life is to have that two-way dialogue. I've seen companies do it wrong where you see that very templated brand response. So they say, oh yeah, we're communicating to them. No, you look like you're like an AI bot or a robot that is
Right.
actually just like giving a canned response. It's so important to listen to your customer and respond to them authentically, and that's the two-way dialogue that brings social from checking the box to great for a brand.
Wow, I love it. I actually agree with all of the 3 points. And the second one, especially because I've seen a lot of, I have worked with a lot of brands and they're like, no, can you just delete the comment? It's not positive. And
Right.
I'm like, I don't think so. We should do that. We should like reply instead of deleting it because that's creates a negative impact, right? So yeah, I totally agree with that.
And not only does that, it skews the authenticity of a channel that should be truly authentic. And the point that you made is a great one. But the third point, and you can't forget, which is what I said before, is like, don't forget, like, we all know that very frustrated customers are much louder
Right.
than happy customers, right? And if
Absolutely.
you don't address and fix that frustrated customer that happens to be telling you through social, I don't like your brand. I'm frustrated. If
Right.
you could take that opportunity again to turn that around, what an effective use of social, right?
Right. Absolutely right. Right. So this takes us to the third question. So I see a lot of job posting asking like 1% to be a analyst, a designer, a strategy. Is it possible to be a marketer unicorn in this age, like in 2026? What
Yeah.
do you think about that?
I love that question because we talk about it often within our four walls when we're putting out a job posting. And I see it a lot with job postings. It is literally the unicorn's the right word. It's asking for everything.
Right.
And the way that I would answer that is that I have seen the Swiss Army knife employee, right? They have good strategic chops. They have good design acumen. They're analytically inclined, and you can find that employee that is that, all in one.
Right.
But is it fair? No, I think that's more of a bonus versus it being the expectation, or versus it should being the expectation. I think that you should focus. And here's the reality too, especially today, brands don't necessarily have money to say, well, I'm going to have four social media managers on the team, one focused on analytics, one focused on design. So I think that you should look for an employee that is more well-rounded, that doesn't just have one discipline. But
Right.
if they're, let's just say you're talking to somebody who is a phenomenal designer, gets the strategy, and can do community management, right? And maybe they aren't as strong on the analytics side.
Mhm.
Um, don't forgo them because they're not checking every box, because then you're going to forgo a fantastic candidate,
Right.
right?
I
Get
agree.
that candidate that checks the majority of the boxes and find a way through the team that you have to augment their skills. And I'll say one more thing about that because I'm passionate about it, because I think it's unfair to a lot of employees when you ask them to do too much, right?
Right.
So it's looking at the other thing that I think is unfair that should be a watch out for leaders and for companies as well, is not only sometimes are you asking them to be the unicorn, but sometimes you're really unfair of the scope of work that you're expecting them to manage, right? So if
Right.
you have a really active brand on social media and you want them to do all of the community management and you want
Mhm.
them to do the content strategy and you want
Mhm.
them to do all of the design,
Mhm.
you may take a really good candidate that could be a Swiss Army knife and they're working 80 hours a week because you're trying to get all of that in one FTE. And
Right.
that's not fair either. So I guess in summary, yes, you can find a talented employee that has multiple of those disciplines and don't have to go for all of them, but be
Right.
really mindful of what you ask them to do because you could be really greedy and want them to do everything, but you're not going to get the best out of that candidate.
Right. No, I absolutely agree because like as I told you, like whenever I worked, it was like, I had to be a unicorn, like one marketing person in the entire team. And it can be tough at times, but also I think in that process I learned a lot of things, like a lot of new
Yes.
things. Like I learned Figma, which is like entirely UI UX people, right? Then I learned how to make websites and CMS platforms. And I think that is very interesting that you just keep upgrading your skill rather than, complaining about it.
So
So I
you're
think
bringing up an excellent point, right?
right.
Sometimes, like in larger companies, when I'm talking like large companies I've been a part of, sometimes the role is very narrow, right? So you're only doing X, and then you don't have the opportunity to spread your wings and learn new things, right?
Absolutely.
So I think to that point exactly, when you've been in a scenario where you've had to learn on the job, and then you learned all these great skills that made you more marketable.
Yeah.
I think that what you should look for in a candidate is somebody that is hungry and ambitious to learn more and give
Right.
them the freedom to do that. So
Right.
let's say
Absolutely.
they check some of the boxes and they're on the job, let them try new things. And if they can do more, wow, look at what you got from that candidate.
Yeah.
But be clear in the expectations so that you're not asking them to do too much. But you're absolutely right. If you have somebody come on board and they're interested in rounding out their skills, let them do it because it's going to be a win for you and it's going to be a win for the employee because it's just going to make them more talented and marketable in the future.
Absolutely. So what do you think like the new marketers like we are like the old marketers. Even I call myself old because I was like back
Oh
in
boy.
2018. Yeah. And what
What
do
am
you
I?
I mean, even I am like we are old marketers. We know we
Yeah.
just like. But what is your view on the new immersion marketer who are actually learning? Should they like try to just be okay at one thing or just just grab everything and learn everything?
I
I mean,
think
the
that
learner side.
Yeah, I think that new marketers should be transparent about what they're really good at,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I agencies do this too. We can do everything. We can
Right.
be everything. We can be
Right.
your brand agency. We can be a digital agency. We can be a performance marketing agency. And then you give them the project and it's really not in their wheelhouse, right?
Right.
I can tell you in a half-hour interview with a candidate, if they're transparent about their skills, but you can see again that ambition to do more, you
Right.
could say, I'm hiring the candidate because I am going to I'm going to be behind that candidate because I know that they can learn more, they'll take on more.
Right.
And when you get a candidate that has that mindset, then they will innately augment their skills because that's the type of person they are.
Right.
So don't come in and say, well, the job description, which often is unfair, is asking me to be A through Z and say you can be everything because it's going to become very apparent very quickly that you're not. And
Right.
that's not the right bait and switch to do to a new company.
Right.
Be very clear in what you can do well, but also be very clear that you're very eager to learn new skills. And if you don't know them now, you're looking for a company that can help you teach them, that can help teach them to you. And I think good leaders really recognize that in younger marketing professionals and are really eager to get those type of people on their team.
I think this also answers my next question. Like, for those who are hunting job right now, for example, even I am hunting a job right now.
Mhm,
So it's very difficult to tell that what the company actually needs. Do they
mhm,
just need like someone who is just like a content machine or, just doing their content, or is they actually need a brand strategist? It's very difficult to, tell
mhm.
from reading the company, key responsibilities and, their
Yeah.
expectations and stuff like that. So I think
Yeah.
I should also answered that.
Yeah, so another good question as you think about because I'm sure so many people like you have these questions right now. So I hope that they're going to be listening to this because they're important questions to navigate getting into marketing or advancing your career. So, in my opinion, to the point that we just said, the job description either may not be accurate or even fair, right? And it probably often looks really daunting when you say, oh my God, like who with my level of experience is actually going to be able to do all of this, right?
Right.
So the job description sometimes, and sometimes it's dead on. I've seen fantastic job descriptions, and so I don't want to knock every job description. I'm just using the use case when it isn't always accurate, right? I
Right.
think the way to tease out what that person's like skills need to be is asking the right questions in the interviews, right? So
Okay.
you could say, well, I'm looking at this job description and ask the person that you're interviewing, like, what would you, there's a lot in this job description that needs to be done, and I can appreciate that. What are you looking to prioritize? What is needed most, right? I
Mhm.
think a really great bonus for somebody that is younger that's going into an organization that's looking for a social media, maybe junior position. This goes back to the first question that we were talking about. Ask about the brand strategy, right? And,
Right.
and ask about how social media today is laddering up to that, or
Mhm.
maybe where it's misaligned and where they could help. That is such a money question that somebody younger would, for somebody to hear somebody ask that question, it is very impressive to think
Right.
that you're not just sitting at your computer and hitting send, right? It's
Right.
really thinking
Absolutely.
of that larger strategy. So ask the right questions, and then I think you get a good idea of what they're really looking for to be able to ascertain if your skills are the right match for that particular role.
Right. Oh, yes. I actually, I don't know. I haven't given much interviews, but asking questions is one of the, they actually really get impressed. Like I see people, giving interviews and they're like, do you have any questions? No, that's kind of negative impact of the company, that you don't have any questions. It's like you're giving an interview for a job.
That's
But
exactly right. I've interviewed a lot of people in my career,
yeah.
and there's only been a couple, thankfully, that say, "Nope, I don't have a question." And my thinking is, I know I was not that comprehensive in my description that you have no questions. But
Right.
I also noticed, I know this is going a little off topic from social, but as people are looking for jobs and the comment about questions. I often notice that some questions they're so super canned, right? And I appreciate that they realize they need to ask questions, but I'd love to what really I think makes candidates stand out is really listening to the discussion. I know it can be nerve-wracking being in an interview, right? And you're retaining some, but you're nervous. I get
Nervous. Yeah.
that. But really listen to the discussion because when you hear what someone's telling you, there's some really good gems that you can ask a question about and
Absolutely.
ask a question about the role. Be a little selfish, right? And exactly what you said, which is a great question is if you are saying that you're looking for somebody that is that you need them to do X, Y, and Z, that would require a lot of different skill sets. Talk to me about the skill set or the experience that is most important for you.
Absolutely.
And that's a great question. That's not showing that you don't do it all. It's showing that you're really curious on what is most important. So be thoughtful about your questions
Right.
because they can definitely allow you to stand out from the pack from other candidates.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This actually
Yeah,
helped me a lot too.
good.
And another question, this is my favorite. What is your take in AI in marketing?
Yes.
What do you think about
So
it?
that is like the question du jour with every marketing team, with every company, at every summit and conference, and everybody's talking about it as they should, right?
Yeah.
Everyone used to talk about, well, AI is coming, but that is no longer the conversation. It's AI is here, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that you hear often, and I'm hoping this gets dispelled more and more, is that, well, it's taking over every job, right? The reality is that AI is making jobs more efficient, right? And the reality too is that it is taking over some routine tasks and sometimes jobs, and that is what it is, right? But
Mhm.
it shouldn't be the sky is falling mentality. For marketers, we should be embracing AI because we are using it every day to make our job, better.
Yeah.
And I would say
Yes.
that transparently, we're probably, myself as a marketer and others on our team are probably using the tip of the iceberg in AI. And I don't know what I would do. I don't remember what I did before it because I am so reliant on whether you are, getting some insights from some raw data and you needed to top, you're looking at AI to top line the insights from the data. Whether you are pulling subject lines for an email that I think I'm a pretty good copywriter, but I am certainly not as good as AI, right? So those are
Right.
just a couple of examples. So I think that marketers should absolutely embrace AI to do their job better and more efficiently. And I
Mhm.
think we all should carve out time to prioritize more learning,
Right.
more training, more
Mhm.
discovery for AI and marketing. Because like I said, we are literally using the tip of the iceberg. And I think those marketers that are using it more frequently and more effectively are going to have the competitive edge. So I'm very happy with the clip that I've seen my team embrace AI, but never rest. Always say what's next because there's going to be so much that we can continue to learn on how AI can make marketers better, smarter, quicker, you name it.
Right. No, absolutely. I know there are a lot of tools which have actually helped me a lot in organization and a lot of things, maybe even graphic designing. Sometimes you just like you're just opening you're just using Photoshop and you're like, oh God, I'm stuck. And then you just, oh, I can use AI a little bit, maybe it can just make it
Absolutely.
easy. So I think it's a good tool, good thing.
Absolutely. What saved me, just as a recent example, what saved a lot of time was a pretty comprehensive competitive analysis,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So design-wise, for sure, it's a lot of fun, and you can really save some cost and really have some sophisticated design
Right.
that you wouldn't be able to do prior. But from like a strategy standpoint, being able to use it for some competitive analysis that used to take hours and hours to
Right.
do and
Right.
to be able to have AI do that for you in minutes it's just endless, the use
It saves
cases.
your time. You
Exactly.
can be more productive, to be honest, I
A
believe.
100%.
Yes, okay. So, what is the one skill a social media manager today needs to move into a leadership role? What do you think?
The most important skill?
Yeah, just one skill.
Yeah. For me,
Mm-hmm.
I think that a social media, whatever that title or position is, I'm going to say strategy. I really am. Because, if they were a fantastic designer or if they could, really, if they're an ace in analytics and can, identify, the better performing ads and formats, et cetera, that's all important. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
However, again, it's a full circle as we talked from the beginning of the discussion, right? It's like, if you don't use social right, from a community management, from taking your frustrated customers and turning them to ambassadors, for having two-way dialogue, for being authentic and human, and all of that, which to me is the strategy of the channel. If
Right.
you can't do that well, you're not using social correctly. So if you can really understand that and unlock that, I think that is your most powerful skill as a social media marketing person.
Oh, wow. Yes, absolutely. And what is the one piece of advice for marketers you have, like to give, who are like seeking jobs and trying to do
Mhm.
it all, and something, one advice according to you?
Yeah. My advice is, especially in this job market, so my advice is going to be very topical and relevant to what we're experiencing today, right?
Right.
The with the political uncertainty, we're seeing economic uncertainty, and therefore that's trickling down naturally to the job market. I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to that are just out of school, and they're so talented and they're so bright and they're so eager to work, and they just cannot find a job.
Right.
And it's so sad to me because I haven't seen it quite like this in a while. So my advice is, you know, be open to, sometimes people say, I want my dream job, right? And your dream job will come. If you are, if you're good, your dream job will come. You will find that job. But be open to doing something that may not be your dream job, okay? And then I'm going to sound like I'm a little bit talking out of the other side of my mouth here, but I guess both pieces of advice are true and complementary. The other side is I'm also seeing this job market. Some companies are getting greedy, right? They know that it's an employer's market and they want, to the point that you made before, someone that does it all. and somebody for to do so much that it isn't fair to put that pressure and that responsibility on a young professional. So be okay not to have your dream job, but be okay to be selective too. Because if you're seeing a role that you feel is just, and use your village, right? Use your friends, use your parents, use your mentors, whoever is in your village, right? To say, does this feel realistic, right? And just because it's a tough market, don't take a job that you feel like you're going to be set up to fail, because that's not going to be fair to you and that's not going to end well for you.
Right.
So a little bit of like kind of two ends of the spectrum advice, but I'd say take them both as you're thinking about your next step in this economy.
Wow, yes, I needed this. I honestly I needed this because it has been so hard, but I think something best is yet to come, you know. I always believe in that.
I like that. And I think people with that mindset, there's an energy there, right? And there's an enthusiasm
Right.
that people can see, right? There are other people, and let's be honest, there's like a bell curve of like people entering the market and they're saying, I don't want to work hard. I want to just put in my time and I just want to get a paycheck. The best is yet to come is not their mantra, right? But if you really, and there's so many people that I feel like have that enthusiasm that you have, and you will find that because you'll be drawn to it and those opportunities will be drawn to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. That answers all my questions for today. And it
Great.
was a great conversation. Thank you. I'm glad we did this.
I am too.
And you take care of yourself.
You too, and stay in touch with me. I know that we're
Yeah.
LinkedIn now, so I'm looking forward to um, keeping track on you and where you go. And I'm
Thank
part of
you.
your network now.
Thank
So if
you.
you ever need anything, I'm here.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
I
Thank
mean
you,
that.
Julie.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
You're
Have a good,
welcome.
good day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.